Consider yourself invited to grab a membership at joinpakman.com, our primary revenue source. Quick, easy, and you get the daily bonus show. Joinpakman.com is the place. This morning, I was browsing the David Pakman Show subreddit, which now has a subscriber base of more than 24,000 of our viewers and listeners at davidpakman.com/Reddit. Few interesting posts. One is an article from the Associated Press pointing out that Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, was a trustee at a private school with anti-gay policies. And one of the comments here is spot on, which is, imagine if instead of being a trustee at a Christian school with anti-gay policies, if Amy Coney Barrett was a trustee at a Muslim school with exactly the same policies, what would conservatives be saying right now? I think you all know exactly what they would be saying. It would be a dramatically different situation. Also, an interesting post on the subreddit linking to a poll about the intellectual dark web and the political leanings of the intellectual dark web. And the discussion was initially about, the intellectual dark web is mostly voting for Trump. And then the poll results reversed, and it looked like the intellectual dark web subreddit was mostly voting for Joe Biden. But then it wasn't clear if this was a fair poll or not a fair poll. I actually think we've talked about the intellectual dark web a lot. I don't even really think the most interesting area of looking at the intellectual dark web relates to, do the people that choose to respond to a poll plan to vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, particularly because the polls can go so much one way or the other. For me, the most interesting thing about the intellectual dark web is actually examining the argument that the dark web idea comes from this notion that you can't get the views of the members of the intellectual dark web unless you look in really bizarre obscure places. But the reality is the IDW does really well on YouTube, and there's a lot of new interesting metrics about that. So for me, what I am interested in is challenging the false notion that these ideas, because you don't see, whoever interviewed on CNN, that it means that the IDW is being suppressed. I don't think it's being suppressed any more than me not being on corporate media, as I barely ever am. I am being suppressed. And in any case, the specifics of who they're voting for in an online poll, I don't find particularly interesting. And then lastly, elitist populist is asking whether our caller Pedro from Colombia, misspelled here as Colombia, like Columbia University. Of course, it's the country Colombia. Whether he is a prank caller, I have to tell you, I don't know the answer. I don't believe that he is actually from the country Colombia. His accent just doesn't check out. But I don't really know. I wish I knew more about exactly the origins of that. But maybe someday we will find out.